Welcome to the Infuse Compassion Podcast, hosted by me, Amy Quisenberry.
And me, Mark Carpenter.
We are on a mission to make this world a kinder place for us all by bringing healthier human connection to communities, families, and organizations of all types and sizes.
Our goal is to create stronger relationships, more inspired teams, increased trust, and improved results.
So let's get started with more ways to infuse compassion into our world. Welcome back, Compassionators, to another episode of the Infuse Compassion Podcast. We have somebody who is really going to open your mind and transform the way that you approach the world and approach your life. And I am so excited for him to be with us here today and share his wisdom and his knowledge and his expertise with all of us. And so I'm going to turn it over to my good buddy, Mark, to do the wonderful introductions.
Oh, thank you, Amy. And it is my privilege to introduce Dr. Paul Jenkins to you today. I've known Paul personally, but I'm going to go through some of his bio anyway. Over the last 3 decades, he has helped people enrich their lives with key relationships and creating better outcomes for themselves, their families, and their organizations. As a psychologist, speaker, and best-selling author, he blends science-backed strategies with real-world applications to help you achieve lasting happiness and success. Thousands of people have reprogrammed their thinking and transformed their lives with his work. He's the author of the book, Portable Positivity, The Art and Science of Being Positive, and the host of the Live on Purpose radio podcast, which is up in the episode 600s. Just for perspective for Amy and I, who we're like thrilled that we're in the 30s now. And I love how Paul frames himself as the shrink who expands your life. So, Dr. Paul Jenkins, welcome to the Infuse Compassion Podcast.
Oh, thank you, Mark. Amy, so awesome to join you guys today because I'm really excited about this topic and how it relates to my field of expertise, which is positive psychology. This will be fun.
I'd love to start with just a little background. I gave the kind of the super quick bio. But how did you get started into this positive psychology space? What was it that drew you there? What happened in your life that got you into positive psychology?
There's always a journey, isn't there? And when you say, how did I get started? So I started at the university as a chemical engineering major. I know, right? How far back? I was really good at all the math and science. In high school, I got a full ride scholarship to Brigham Young University. I went into the engineering program, and I grew up in rural Utah. Okay. I didn't know what a psychologist was. I had 3rd period with Uncle Harvey and 4th period with Aunt Sherry. You get the picture. Okay. We didn't have a psychology class. Most of my classmates were learning how to milk cows and fix cars. And so, I did really well at math and science. So what do? You go into engineering. So that's what I did. And I had a psychology class during that freshman year that really opened my eyes a little bit. It's like, wait, there's a science behind how the mind works. And it caught my attention. Then it took a couple of years off to go live in Finland, learn a new language, and discover in that process that I really enjoyed having conversations with people, principle-based conversations that changed their lives. I was working as a missionary in Finland. And then when I came back to the university, I'm like, okay, I got to do something else. And so I switched my major to psychology. To the dismay of some of my family, because they're like, what can you do with a degree in psychology? And basically, you can either go to graduate school or sell used cars. And so I went to graduate school and got into clinical psychology. I got a PhD in clinical psychology. But to get to your question, Mark, that wasn't my journey into positive psychology. That set me up for it. So fast forward about 15 years, I've got this busy psychotherapy practice, working mostly with kids and adolescents and families, parents. I was busy. You couldn't even get an appointment with me in like months. I had a waiting list and negative cash flow for 2 quarters in a row. And with the kind of math I do now, that's not sustainable. It put me in a position. See, going into clinical psychology, I'm thinking, I will be the expert, right? You go to parties and people are like, well, I'm not a psychologist, but, and then they give you their opinion about something. I am a psychologist. So I'm like, I'll be the expert. People come to me for advice about life. And here I am, not even able to feed my family. And it's like, what? That chapter 1 in my book, Pathological Positivity, you mentioned the mini book, Portable Positivity, which I'll refer back to in a minute. Chapter 1 is lightning strikes. You know how you're going through life and you expect things to go a certain way, and then boom, you're hit by some thunderous bolt of lightning. And for me, it was a bankruptcy. Because like I said, you can't sustain negative cash flow. It's like you got to have more income than expense or else you tank. Well, I tanked. So here I am, a professional psychologist, 15 years of clinical experience already at this point. People lined up to see me. And here I am in the bottom of a well with my head wrapped in a blanket, because life had just kicked me to the curb. And this is not what I planned. I realized at some point, well, actually, this came from conversations that I was having. I had already launched my podcast right about when this happened. Live on Purpose Radio. I launched in 2007. So now we're talking about 2008, 2009, when I'm going through this bankruptcy. And I interviewed a lady named Mary Louise Zeller. You can go look her up. She is amazing. This lady is in her 80s and is a 6th-degree black belt in Taekwondo. Okay, this grandma can kick you the next Thursday. And she knows a little bit about my situation. I had had a few conversations with her. She knows what I'm going through. And she said, Paul, the troops aren't coming. Then she paused to let that sink in. And I felt that. We are the troops. And she might as well have kicked me. I'm glad she didn't. That would have hurt. But she kick-started me onto this journey into positive psychology. See, I knew all of the science. I had the degree. I had the credentials. I didn't have the wisdom that comes through life experience combined with knowledge. So even though I knew the philosophies, I had the book smarts. I hadn't tested it in my own life. And I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, but I came out of that bankruptcy court. I'm holding the hand of my sweetheart, who I had just disappointed. I'd promised her father 20 years earlier that I'd take good care of her, and here I am. And I come out of that bankruptcy court, and the thing that I noticed that surprised me, everything's still in color. I don't know why I was surprised by that. What was I expecting? Some old 20s movie that's all black and white, people shuffling around in trench coats? It's color. I mean, there's birds in the trees. There's children in the playground. And the world kept moving forward. And I'm like, wait, isn't it supposed to come screeching to a halt? To make that whole story just a little shorter, what I learned is that circumstances are neutral. our stories about those circumstances are not. And it's our story, our narrative about those circumstances that creates our emotional energy. Okay, the results that we experience are not because of our circumstances. And I learned that I can experience happiness, joy, with or without money. I don't think I believed that before, or at least my life experience hadn't taught me that. And it's really easy to say, oh, you can do without money when you have it. But can you say that when you don't? And so what I learned through that experience is that it's not about all of the science that I learned in psychology. Yes, that informs us very well about neurology and how the brain works and human behavior. But it's really about how we operate the equipment that matters. How we operate the equipment of our own mind. So my job became, I gotta tell as many people about this as I can, because there are too many of us that are trapped in our circumstance. I shouldn't be, right? I'm a professional psychologist. But here I was, trapped in my circumstances and feeling such a victim. So that happened about 15 years into my career, and now I'm about 15 years past that. So it's a whole new world.
In those 15 years, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see that people have to overcome in kind of fixing the operating system, as you will, fixing the mechanism of our brain? What are some of the biggest challenges you see that people face?
I think there's only one. And when I say there's only one, it's because every problem we have is a problem with thinking. Now, I know that's a bold statement, but I'm convinced that this is true. We think, because we're human, that it's our circumstances that matter. Well, if only this were true, or if only that were the case, then I'd be okay. And I was telling myself that, if those guys would pay me, the guys that I invested with, because they promised they would. And I'm sure as soon as they get out of prison, they will. Are they going to pay me back? Or I was saying, well, as soon as the economy changes, then I should be fine once how long am I willing to wait for the economy to change? Well, it changes all the time, doesn't it? It doesn't always get better. So when Mary Louise gave me that little kickstart and she's like, hey, the troops aren't coming. We are the troops. What I learned after that about the operation of the equipment is what made all the difference. So when I said it's always a problem with thinking, my job is to illuminate the obvious. Okay, this is cool because I get paid to tell people things they already know. But there's obvious things that are completely unnoticed. Okay, like your shoes. Can you feel them? Well, now that I mention it, right?
Yep.
You didn't tune into that until I said it, right?
Yeah.
So it's obvious, but it's unnoticed. Or the fact that we're speaking English. Did you notice? Obvious, but unnoticed. The processes in our head are just like that. And in my model, so I believe that models are more powerful than ideas. Okay, so I've developed a model around positivity. You've heard it forever. Just think positive, which is kind of annoying, actually, depending on who's saying it. But notice that if we understand what positivity actually is, and we have a model to understand how to operate the equipment of our own mind, then we have a choice. Awareness precedes choice. I'll just say that again. Awareness precedes choice. And until you're aware of it, you simply roll with your programming and you're not even necessarily aware of it. So my job is to bring that to people's awareness. Once they're in that state of awareness, then they have a choice. And I'm not here to tell you how to think. I don't have that kind of authority. What you do with it is totally up to you, but I want you to see that it's happening. So there's two, when I say it's always a problem with thinking, again, Mark, to get back to your question about that, the barrier that we encounter is our own thinking. And then I want to break that down into two types of thinking. Okay, so do you want to play this a little bit?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. You notice your shoes? Oh, there they are again. See how quickly your brain forgets about it? And this is one of the challenges we're up against. I invite you to notice that you can think about your thinking. This is called metacognition. Okay, cognition means thinking. Metacognition is a higher level. It's thinking about thinking. And be careful with this. You can hurt yourself. But you notice in this moment that you can think about your thinking. Oh, what am I thinking about right now? Oh, yeah. And you can kind of watch your thinking. This is what mindfulness and meditation help us to master. So as you think about your thinking, I invite you to notice this next. You, Mark, Amy, dear listener, you are constantly judging. Amy, I saw your face change when I said that. Why?
Well, because my Start with Compassion framework, the first S is silence the judger. And I call it the most critical component of the framework. Without it, it can't work, because as soon as we go into judgment, we sever the connection, which the C is connection. So, yes.
And here's the challenge. Here's the challenge. We can't turn it off. This is like gravity. Okay, now I'm gonna give you some hope here in just a minute. Hang with me. But we can't turn it off. We're constantly judging. And this is because our brain has two main jobs, okay? To keep us safe and to prove us right. And both of those get in our way all the time. But to keep us safe, our brain has to constantly be scanning our environment for potential threats, right? That is judgment. We have to, and the word I use in my model is evaluation. I'll show you a quick visual of the model here for those of you who are on video. Evaluation means judgment. And evaluation implies comparison. So notice this. You are constantly judging yourself. Pretty harshly sometimes. You judge your spouse, your kids, your coworkers, the weather, the government, the economy. You're judging me. It's fine. I'm judging you. Just notice that it's happening. And evaluation requires comparison with some standard. So here's a quick example. I ask my audiences sometimes in a keynote, am I a tall man? And there I am standing in front of them, right? And they're like, well, yeah, you're pretty tall, I guess. And then I said, would it help if I showed you a picture of me? And then I show them a picture of me standing next to Mark Eaton. Okay, Mark, you probably know Mark.
I knew who Mark Eaton is. Tell everybody else.
Well, Mark he used to play center for the Utah Jazz. Okay, still one of the top shot blocking record holders in the NBA. 7'4". Okay, I'm 6'2". Now, most people, and even that is a standard of comparison.
Yeah.
Okay. When I say 6'2", you're like, oh, I know what that is. I'll compare you to that. And I kind of know how tall you are. But next to 7'4", I look like a shrimp. I barely make his shoulder. So am I a tall man or not? Notice that your answer to that depends on who or what you compare me to. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a standard of comparison, you'll make one up. You got a really good imagination.
What do we make it up on? What do we make that up based on?
Well, so here's a trick question, you guys. This just illustrates it. How's your marriage? If you're married, how's it going? And now it's a trick question. How's your finances? Again, trick question. How you doing with whatever it is that you're doing? It's a trick question. But notice that you've got an answer to that. What I invite you to notice is that you're comparing it to something. So when I mentioned the marriage, okay, I spent about 17, 18 years doing couples counseling and therapy as part of my practice. I still do couples coaching. I don't do therapy anymore. I haven't done that for 15 years. But I've seen some crazy stuff, okay? I spent 13 years doing child custody evaluations for the 4th District Court. Wow. You can't shock me. So people come in and I'm like, how's your marriage? And they're like, well, it's not very good. Compared to what? Because I know a family where he hired a hitman to kill her. Oof. Okay, now how's your marriage doing? I know another one where she fired a .45 caliber handgun at him. She wasn't a very good shot, luckily for him. I know another one where she killed their daughter. Now you guys are wincing. Why? And how are you feeling about your own marriage right about now?
Pretty darn good.
Do you see? So in illuminating the obvious, you can't turn off the evaluation. Let me go back to that, Amy, because your framework, your brilliant compassion framework, first S is silence the judger, right? But what you mean is silence the negative judger.
Yes. So to elaborate on it, I say when the voice shows up and it's not helpful, to turn the volume down. Because if we start to judge the voice, with criticism, then that's not helping anything either, right? So if we come in and with this hammer where we're like, we need to not be like, well, that's not helpful, right? But if we just kind of turn to soften it, just turn the volume down a little bit. And really the beauty of it in this discussion is it makes so much room for now the positivity to come in, right?
Yes, which is actually a choice. But until you see it as a choice, it's not.
Right.
And that's why the model is so powerful. Go ahead.
I want to ask you a question. I love what you've taken us through. And I have like half a page of notes on what you've taken us to, but I don't know if you know this or not, but we have a whole nother discussion after this one where we're going to talk all about that. So that's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So so we're going to talk about you when you're not in the room. Okay. But you're going to be able to hear it. So this is what I want to know. One of the things that you're really helping people with is living on purpose, right?
That's the name of my practice.
Living on purpose. So let's dig into, like, you've beautifully explained the mechanics, what's going on in here, but how do people actively make that shift to live on purpose? What is it?
I think it goes right back to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago. When awareness precedes choice. You don't have a choice until you see that you have a choice, because you'll roll with your programming. And programming is really, really strong. So people are programmed when they experience pain, difficulty, frustration. Our programming is that that's bad. That's our programming. It's our for most of us. Okay. And when I say programming, I'm talking like language. I speak English. We're all speaking English here today. I didn't choose to speak English. People programmed me, and they didn't ask me. They just programmed me to speak English. Now I'm also fluent in Finnish. Well, guess what? I had to choose that. And then I had to work at it a lot. So in our psychology, it's very similar. When we encounter something difficult, painful, frustrating, our programming tells us that's bad. What we know for sure is that it's neutral. It's not bad. It's neutral. And when I say it's neutral, I don't mean that it's easy or painless. It might be very difficult and painful. The bankruptcy was. My son's cancer was. When I had a double Achilles repair, it was painful. So I'm not saying it's not painful or difficult. In fact, positivity is often misunderstood to be ignoring the pain. You know, toxic positivity, maybe you've heard that term. It's pasting on a smile and pretending everything's peachy. No, that's not what we're talking about here. When I say circumstances are neutral, what I mean is, according to our model, it is what it is. It could always be better. It could always be worse. And just take a minute and see if that's true. I don't want you to take my word for it. I want you to just run it through your filters and see.
Yeah. We commit to not talking a whole lot, but I want to share something briefly here.
Please.
And yes. That is, I had an unexpected dental emergency yesterday where the crown broke on one of my teeth. And I called the dentist immediately. Oh my gosh, can you get here in 20 minutes? Yes, I can. And as I'm sitting there and the doctor comes in, they x-ray it, and he says, okay, here's the situation. He explains it to me, and I'm clear it's bad, but I'm also clear it could have been so much worse. They were closed Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and wouldn't be back until Monday. I got in today. They were able to save a portion of my tooth. They were like, the insurance ended up paying for a portion. It could have been so, like, there's a number of things where it could have been so much worse. And so as I'm in terrible pain, knowing that this is going to be very expensive, I'm still in this place of, goodness, it could have been so much worse.
Right, which brings about a whole different emotional energy.
Yeah.
And this is important. So going back to the model, and by the way, I keep bringing up the visual.
I love it.
I have this all explained step by step in my mini book, Portable Positivity. And I've got a free digital download of this book for everybody who's listening. If you go to drpauljenkins.com/compassion, it'll take you right to it. Okay. And that's just a gift so that you'll be able to see the actual visual model that I'm referring to. When we take what it is and we compare it to something better, and you can always imagine something better than a broken crown. That's not hard, right? When we compare it to not having a broken crown, how do we feel about having a broken crown? This sucks. Right? And it really does compared to something better. When we take what it is, a broken crown, we compare it to something worse. we actually feel, even though we may be in pain, we actually feel better about what it is. This emotional energy, whichever it is, whether it's positive or negative, and let me pause there for just a minute, because the feeling, the emotional energy that you get is based on your comparison. And I tell this to my clients all the time. You are always right about how you feel. How you feel is 100% consistent with the way your brain is evaluating your what it is. Now, having said that, I said it could always be better, it could always be worse. Is that true? And Amy, your example is a beautiful one, because broken crown. Could it be better than that? Clearly. Could it be worse? Is that true? So no matter how good things seem, it could always be better. True?
True.
Or worse.
Or no matter how bad things seem, it could always be worse.
Mm-hmm.
Or better, clearly. So if that's true, then what it is truly neutral. Meaning, here we are permanently between something better and something worse. What that means is we don't get to choose what it is. Sometimes that just lands in our lap or in our jaw. Right? I didn't pick this. I didn't sign up for it. What do we get to choose? Our position, which is synonymous with the word attitude, by the way. I learned that from my son, who is a pilot. It's an aviation term that means position. Our attitude about it is something we get to choose. In fact, Viktor Frankl called that the last of human freedoms.
Yeah.
To choose our attitude. Now, that's pretty powerful doctrine coming out of Auschwitz. Mm-hmm. The reason this matters so much, as I keep flashing the model onto the screen, is that we're not done yet, because our brain also, our thoughts also go into the category of creation. And we can't turn this off any more than we can turn off evaluation and judgment. We have to create something. And we don't know what's coming. So let's just check that out for a minute. How are you doing next week?
I have no idea.
You guys you're chuckling a little bit. You don't know. But you have something to do with it. Okay, don't forget that. That's what being a creator is all about. But you don't know. So all you can do at this point is imagine or predict or expect or even plan. But it's all in our mind. What is to be doesn't exist yet. We haven't created it yet. So check out the emotional energy. When we start here in evaluation, we're going to take whatever energy we create there to the creation game. And when you imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even worse than what I already have, then how do I feel?
Future looks kind of bleak.
Yes, this, my friends, is anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 30 years of clinical experience in a nutshell. On the bottom part of the model, the negative evaluation generates depression. When we predict negative things to come, that's anxiety. How do we feel when we imagine or predict or expect that what's coming is even better than what we've already got? Do you feel that emotional shift? That's excitement, anticipation. I also label that hope. And hope is the number one preventative factor for suicide. We're losing too many people. It's tragic. 9 people that I personally know and love lost their lives to suicide in an 18-month period.
I'm so sorry.
And maybe I know more than some because I'm a professional psychologist. I don't know. I think it's way too common. And I bet everybody listening knows someone. Now you're both nodding.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's why this is so important.
Mm-hmm.
It saves lives. And hope is available on demand. We can create it by choice. And it doesn't matter what our circumstances are. So when you asked me earlier, what gets in people's way? It's only one thing. It's always a problem with thinking because our circumstances are neutral. And when we learn how to operate the equipment and do the thinking, when I say thinking, I mean your evaluation thinking first, and then your creation thinking. Then we can create peace and hope, and we can stay away from depression and anxiety. That's the model.
And for those of you who are in listen only mode, make sure that you take advantage of that free offer that Dr. Paul has given of his mini book on portable positivity. So you can see that model. It makes so much sense. In fact, I'd recommend you get that and then go back and listen to this part of the podcast again, where Dr. Paul walks you through it.
Yes.
Because I think it's really important to have the description of it as they're seeing it as well. Although I'm sure the mini book walks you through it as well.
Step by step. We break it down one piece at a time so that you can really grab hold of the model. It's important to know how to operate the equipment of your own mind.
And we'll have that link in our show notes so that everybody can get that really, really easily. Thank you, Paul, for the offer, that very kind and generous offer to all of our listeners. Amy, do you want to ask the last question, or do you want me to?
I will go ahead and ask it. Thank you. So,
you wanted to ask it today.
Paul, what is one thing you can share with our compassionators, our listeners, on how they can infuse compassion into their world, their life this week? What's one tip you can share with them?
I want to take this right back to our model and to your framework, Amy, because the S for silence the judger. If we can't silence it, what if we can redirect it? If we can turn down the volume and then turn up the volume on a different choice. The number one problem that we have in our own thinking is that we know we're right. And I'm not even saying we think we're right. It's at a different level. We know we're right. So the direct application here would be first to notice that you are judging. And then consciously flipping that switch. Silence the judger. Turn up the volume on the positive judgment, because that person that you're judging is doing the best that they know how to do with what they have some of the time. Then we're going to throw that little disclaimer in, okay? Because nobody does this perfectly all the time, yourself included. And have a lot of compassion for yourself too. Let's just practice that grace and forgiveness. I think humility is giving up our need to be right about our judgment in exchange for being open. And assume the best. Assume the best. And even if you're wrong, it still puts you in a better position because it changes your emotional energy. When I think of compassion, that's the immediate application of this model. Notice that you're judging. Intentionally flip the switch and choose a different position on purpose. And the way that I said that is, assume the best. Assume the best about every person you encounter. And even if you're wrong, you're in a better place.
Thank you. Dr. Paul Jenkins, thank you so much for being with us today. You've given us a boost. I know that you've given our listeners a boost. And just thank you for the work that you're doing in helping people fix the system, fix the thinking system, so that we can have more hope and more peace in our lives and in our world. And so I'll just end there and say thank you. And everybody go out and just analyze, be aware of how you're thinking, silence that judger, tone it down, turn on the positive judgments and see the kind of hope that it gives you for the coming week. Thank you for joining us. I also want to put one last plug in here before we leave for our Infuse Compassion into Companies conference, which is coming up. You can register for that now at infusecompassion.com. We've been meeting with our speakers, and we got a great speaker lineup for that. That's on November 14th. It's a virtual conference. We'd love to have you join us. InfuseCompassion.com. And we'll see you next week for our next episode of the Infuse Compassion Podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Infuse Compassion Podcast. If you enjoyed the conversation, please share a review and like the podcast so other compassionators can join us. Until next time, let's all do something each day to infuse compassion into the world. For more information on our guests, see the show notes. For more information on Mark and Amy, go to infusecompassion.com.